For over 20 years, Dectro International has been developing and manufacturing specialized equipment designed for the international market of permanent hair removal. Our knowledge of basic epilation techniques such as electrolysis, thermolysis and blend, combined with our expertise in leading-edge technology, have allowed us to innovate in order to make electroepilation treatments faster and more efficient than ever before. For over 125 years, electrolysis was and still is the only recognized method of permanent hair removal. This technique permanently eliminates the germinative cells responsible for hair growth, with a probe that is inserted in the hair follicle and the application of current.
In the next few minutes, we'll talk about electrolysis and more specifically about professional acts in electrolysis. We will review in 4 major stages the extent of professionalism in the field of electrolysis. These 4 stages are greeting, pre-treatment, the treatment per se, and post-epilation. To do so, you will witness an electrolysis session and you will therefore be able to note the benefits of the only permanent hair removal method. In today's world, hair-free fashion is in for both men and women. We're therefore convinced that you will appreciate the next few minutes. Welcome to the one and only world of permanent hair removal. Welcome to the world of electrolysis. The greeting aspect of electrolysis is the first key to success. The most important issue is to establish at the onset a bond of trust, which means taking the time to make contact and establish a relationship. The first contact with the client consists in explaining the treatment as well as discussing the client's needs and expectations. Since most electrolysts have themselves undergone electrolysis, an open exchange generally develops quite rapidly between you and your electrologist. Then, the electrologist begins to collect information. The first step consists in identifying potential contraindications. For example, if a person takes anticoagulants, the electrologist must ask for medical clearance before undertaking treatment. Once the short investigation is completed, the electrologist must perform a thorough skin examination. Since pilosity varies from one person to the next, and from one body area to the next, the skin exam is a determining factor that calls on all the electrologist's background and experience. The skin examination is a good example of what we call a professional act. A good electrologist must rapidly determine all the required phases of the treatment. Once the trust needed to ensure successful treatments has been established, we now enter the pre-treatment phase. The client's position for the session should not be left to chance. It is determined by a series of rules that vary according to the body area undergoing treatment. The electrologist will take particular care in positioning the client to ensure his or her comfort. Then, the electrologist's position is just as important. In finding the proper position, the electrologist ensures her own comfort and also enhances the effectiveness of the treatment. We can see here that the body area that will be epilated requires a particular position. For epilation on the calves, as it is seen here, the client is lying face down in order to present the surface that will be treated. The legs are slightly apart. Note that the electrologist is positioned on the side of the leg, sitting at a specific height calculated to be both efficient and comfortable. In the professional world of electrolysis, hygiene plays a very important role. Wearing gloves is an essential hygiene measure. Also, note that the paper lining on the treatment table is always changed, with the obvious objective of offering hygienic treatment conditions. Then, the electrologist must apply on the treated body area a solution to disinfect the skin. Finally, for each session, the electrologist uses a single probe and also sterilizes the tweezers and all other tools that were handled during the session. As you can see, while performing professional acts in electrolysis, sterilization at each step of the treatment is perfectly controlled to promote complete asepsis during treatment. Everything is now in place, and performance, or treatment per se, can now begin. The performance part of the treatment refers to the professional acts carried out during a session. We must, however, mention that in electrolysis, technological support is a determining factor. Using the appropriate device, as we can see, can have a profound impact. In Quebec, high-tech electrolysis is booming, and local developments are acclaimed worldwide. Of course, electrologists as well as their clientele are the first to benefit from this profitable situation. The first step in the performance consists in creating and managing a database that will become the client file. The electrologist begins by selecting, among all existing techniques, the most appropriate. This crucial phase in the treatment must take into account the type of hair to be removed, as well as the body area to be treated. In this case, the selected technique is the microflash high-frequency technique. Note that this is a very effective technique that is suitable for all hair types. It is also very effective for mature individuals whose water content, more specifically in the dermis, drops considerably with age, or for persons who have excessive sun exposure and who also suffer from insufficient water in the dermis. The microflash technique consists in a very short current application, a few thousandths of a second, which makes the treatment comfortable.
Voici la technique d'épilation à l'électricité. Elle se fait en
The electrologist carries out the epilation technique in 3 regular movements.
Faites glisser le filament le long du follicule pileux.
First, she gently glides the probe along the hair follicle, without perforating and without any discomfort for the client.
Le filament étant inséré jusqu'à la base du
Once the probe is correctly inserted down the base of the follicle, the electrologist applies a current at the selected intensity for the selected time required according to the type of hair and body area being treated.
follicule pileux permet la destruction des cellules responsables de la pose du
The
poil.
current destroys the germinative cells and coagulates the capillary vessels that feed them. The last step, but not the least, is to remove the hair. There should be no resistance. This indicates to the client and the electrologist that the technique was applied correctly. Electrolysis is a proven technique and is the only technique that provides complete and permanent removal of unwanted hair. Of course, it would be redundant to present a detailed description of all the techniques available, but what we must stress is that the professional acts performed by the electrologist call on an important background covering many different fields such as electricity, biology, chemistry, dermatology, and pharmacology. Since these fields are related to the field of electrolysis, the electrologist must understand the basic principles of each in order to understand how these different disciplines interact and affect each other. We can now see that the session is almost over, which brings us to the last but not the least step of the process, post-epilation. Once the hair removal treatment has been completed, the electrologist should apply a soothing product, a gel, or a calming lotion. The selection of an appropriate product calls on a good knowledge of cosmetology, which plays an important role at this stage of the session. At this stage, the hair follicle is dilated, and it must be closed up and protected either by applying a product or using the cataphoresis technique in order to prevent infection. Furthermore, for each client, the electrologist must take into account certain contraindications. During this last step of the session, the electrologist will give the client advice on prevention and maintenance, such as using moisturizing products. The client should be aware that certain types of behavior are to be avoided in the 48 hours after the electroepilation session. For example, unprotected skin exposure, as well as sessions in a tanning salon, could cause unwanted skin reactions. As the session ends, the electrologist must also be able to establish a follow-up strategy by scheduling upcoming sessions. This schedule is directly related to the cursory pilosity examination performed at each session. Since hairs are easier to treat in the anagene phase, the electrologist should take into account the growth rate of hairs observed in problem areas in order to set up the next appointment to obtain maximum effectiveness. We hope that these few minutes on electrolysis have convinced you of the effectiveness of the only permanent hair removal method. The detailed presentation of the 4 steps is an electroepilation session demonstrated in concrete terms the strict observance, the attention to detail, and the application of all the knowledge needed to practice this professional career known as electrology. Supported by an avant-garde technology renowned throughout the world, the AEQ, Association des Electrolyses du Québec, can be proud of its expanding field of expertise. The AEQ represents more than 500 electrologists. It offers vocational training and continuing education as well as numerous other benefits to its members. Dectro International is proud to support the electrology profession from both technological and educational standpoints. Furthermore, Dectro provides continuing support to electrology associations throughout the world in order to promote exchange and share knowledge in our field. If you have any questions or wish to obtain additional information on the electrology profession or on permanent hair removal treatments by electrolysis, please contact us at www.dectro.com.